Okay, here we go, folks. It's come up for us. Just gone past 7 o'clock in Queensland, naturally. But for our friends who are listening and watching all around the world, our co-host, none other than Andrena, has informed me that UK's gone to summertime. So it's currently 10 o'clock in the morning for her, so she can sleep up until at least 9:30 now.
Yeah.
Have her porridge and a cup of tea, and she's good to go. So without further ado, she's going to introduce you to our guest straight out of one of nature's garden beds.
Oh, hi everybody, and welcome to Dreaming the New Dream. And we've sort of had a couple of weeks off, so we're back live again today. And today is the 30th of March, and I believe tomorrow's the last day of March. Anyway, I was blessed to go to Knowlton Church for the equinox, a couple of weeks ago now. And I bumped into Sandy. Now, I haven't seen Sandy. I've known her probably since about 2007, I think. And we've sort of chit-chatted over Facebook and different things over the years. And anyway, it was so lovely to see her again. And I love the work that she does with the Rose and so many other things. So I've asked her to be a guest on the show. So welcome, Sandy, and it's lovely to have you here.
Thanks, Andrena, and lovely to meet Jeff too. It's just beautiful, to have bumped into you at Knowlton. I mean, how synchronistic!
Well, yeah,
yeah. It's such a lovely gathering, and I was invited to do the first meditation. There's a series of 3 meditations that have been happening at equinoxes and solstices. Particularly at Knowlton, but at other sacred sites in the UK. And I was very blessed to be invited to be part of that faculty. And there were so many lovely faces, so many familiar faces, because I've recently moved out of area and over here into Somerset. So it was just gorgeous.
And, so I'll catch up with you when, somewhere along the track anyway for a cuppa. Right. So, you talk about multifaceted. So you are, we are all like diamonds, aren't we? Multifaceted. And I know you have got many sparkly bits to your diamond with all the different things you've done. I know you've been a wedding dress designer, a house whisperer. You've designed your own Rose Oracle cards. You've done scarves. And so much more, house whispering. And so let's start from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
Start off your journey of life, where you were born. I know you said you were in London, not a place that I'd ever heard of before, but then I don't know it all. So, please share all the steps and the highs and lows that have brought you to this point now.
Yeah, well, how long have you got? I've been here a while. So, I was born in Newport Pagnell, north of London, and my father was working for Aston Martin. He was working on his tools. He was part of their team that used to build these amazing race cars. And so I'm sure that was the adventure that drew him from his family home in Bournemouth up to north of London, having got married to my mum. They obviously vacated the locality of the south of England and headed north. And sure enough, a few years later, I came along. And for family circumstances, they made a decision to move back down to the south, back down to Southampton. And so that was really the main part of my journey, was along this south coast of England, always around the periphery of the New Forest, because the epicenter of the New Forest, and actually what's been called Witch Central, because it had seemed to have magnetized a lot of mystics and those that were interested perhaps in the healing arts. They gravitated to Burley in the New Forest. And so my my early years were really focused around there. It was my maternal family home, and wherever we moved in my birth family, we seemed to be around that New Forest area. And curiously, my grandfather was a professional gardener, and my grandmother was called Rosa Kate, and my sister, who's recently passed, was called Rosemary. So this whole connection with flowers, with playing as a child in his rose garden, and it was rich. I mean, he was an artist with plants and color. So as a child, I was sort of immersed in this magical land. But it was my grandmother who was my real sense of unconditional love. Most of us have got some kind of trauma story that sits in the back catalogue in our familial pod, but always there is one person that we have a deeper relationship with that makes a bit more sense out of some of the things that we experience in our journey. And so my grandmother was it for me. She was the one that wrapped her arms around me as a little child running along the gravel path to this little cottage. And it really was a little semi-detached cottage in the New Forest. And my grandmother belonged to the WI and the church, and in the war she'd been with Red Cross. So there's a lot of nurturing and caring qualities. And I came to understand that in later years that actually one of her purposes of being there was to birth a lot of the local babies in the front room of the cottage.
Really?
So, there's a sort of really fascinating, back catalogue. But this place of the rose has always sort of sat with me as a thread. And, as I grew up, I was drawn to the arts. I could make a tailored suit from the age of 11. So there was clearly something in the genes that had come down the line, and I think myself that there was a history of connection with probably the French court. I have a strong connection to France and the path of the Magdalene, the path of the Rose, and also this love of French textile, the love of beauty as it reveals itself. So this a circuitous route that took me through an art pathway, ultimately to get married and to open up my first wedding dress shop, and that was in 1982. That was the first time I opened up on my own. I'd been working sort of through somebody else's shop for a couple of years before that. But 1982 was when I first started my journey with silk and making beautiful dresses. And that took me really right till 2000. It was that 18-year journey. And in that sort of time in the design world, it was big dresses and, very fluffy sort of dresses, if you like. They migrated through the time until, towards the end of the time, it was a much more sophisticated, straight look. But actually, for me, the curiosity became more about who was this woman who came into my shop? Who was she? And what was her dream? So, this is called dreaming the new dream, right? The women that came through my door had a dream. And so I would sit and listen to that dream. I'd sit and listen to her story. How did she meet her beloved? How did she meet this person she was going to journey with? And that told me a lot about her sense of herself and her relationships. So I'd get to meet Mum often. What was the dynamic between this woman and her mother? What was the dynamic between this woman and her sisters if they were going to be bridesmaids? And because we did top end work, we often got very big, prestigious weddings. You know, our work was in Hello magazine. We were on the front page of the Telegraph and, you know, a lot of the main newspapers at times.
Page 3?
Sorry?
Page 3?
Jeffrey?
Page 3?
Jeffrey?
Well, possibly. Depends what. It depended. I did have some strange requests along the journey, I have to say. But, you know, this curiosity about nature and nurture and the way this woman felt about her body. You know, I get women that had amazing bodies, and you could wear a really body conscious dress, and Mum was going, no, I'm not having that. I want this, and I want this, and I want, you know, who was in control? Who was mastering this whole thing? And you get to see who was the favoured child. You know, was it the bride or was it one of the sisters? It was very much, somebody called it in years after that I was researching the human dream, you know, because these women were planning weddings 2 years in advance, you know, talking about Bridezilla, you know, they were focused in, you know, the whole family was focused in on this one day. And I suppose there was a sort of a slight disquiet for me because I was making very expensive dresses, beautiful couture dresses that would be worn for 4 or 5 days and put in a box, 4 or 5 hours and put in a box, possibly, if they were lucky. You know, it was, I mean, this was in the end one of the things that was a bit of a disquiet for me. But I'd often, because I did big weddings, would end up at the bride's house to dress the bride and the family in the morning of the wedding. So I'd get to see the house that formed her as well. And I'd often do waistcoats and cravats and things for Dad, sometimes frock coats. You know, you get the whole picture. And it really was, as somebody was to say to me, researching the human dream, you know, this vision that we have. And so, you know, in a lot of ways, I was quite naive and in la la land, and in, you know, that you walked off, you met this beloved, and you walked off hand in hand into the sunset.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that was not how it worked. So, you know, I began to look deeper at the attractor factor. What was the attractor factor, and what was the frequency of the heart that attracted the partner in? And so, you know, that then took me into curiosity. So in 93, I went off and trained in Reiki. That opened up a whole, I mean, candy shop, really, because that took me onto numerology and crystals, and I started taking the birth dates of the bride and groom, working out what their gifts were, what the exchange was, and couching that on gold and silver threads and semi-precious stones, which I dowsed because I'd become a dowser by the time I got to 1996. So I dowsed the stones for the right, you know, for the couple, and then put them in the numerological sequence on the bodice. And the dresses became known as the threads of life. And what they were aimed to do was when the girl put this dress on, that she came into an inner alignment. She, you know, she became radiant, and it didn't matter whether she'd got this puffball of a dress on or whether she'd got this really simple, sexy little number on. She was, you know, in her power. She was radiant. And
I got to stop you there, because you actually, for a mere male,
yeah,
I thought the Middletons did a really good job to sell their second daughter, making her the solo bridesmaid at Kate's wedding to what's his name?
William.
No, that's a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they really sold Pippa, didn't they?
Well, they did. I mean, A, she had a good body, and B, they chose a dress that was going to show off that body.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, absolutely.
Threads of life. They really did a good job there.
Yeah, you know, because actually, you it's all frequency. At the end of the day, it's all frequency. And, this whole thing with relationship is we attract through frequency, through a frequency match, a pattern match, and we attract our homes in the same way. So the curiosity in my journey was that I attracted to myself the last shop that I had in that journey. When I think I moved in about 1997 into this shop in Romsey, and it was an 1860s building, and it was on 3 floors. And in the basement, we kept our fabrics and, our stock materials. The main shop was my showroom. So I used to do a collection each season. And so the brides would come in and they'd try the sample dress on, and then they would either buy that or I'd sit and sketch with them and adapt from the form, from the shape that worked for their body. And up on the top floor, I had my team, and that varied between 3 and 7 people, depending on whether we were doing a catwalk show in London, whether we were going to the main exhibition at the trade exhibition at Harrogate. I did actually take my dresses on a trunk show in the States, from Los Angeles to San Francisco, and I had dresses out in a shop in Bethesda in Maryland for a while. So when I had a bride who came to me from the States, and I had to send the toile, the calico shape of her dress out to her, and then the second fitting, and she had them fitted in a theatre in Times Square where she was working. So they fitted the dresses and pinned them, and then they came back to me for finishing.
Wow.
So we were really good at what we did, right? But when we moved into this shop, we hadn't long been in there, and things would start to move along the rails in the shop, and I'd come downstairs, and I had an old-fashioned sprung doorbell. There was nothing technology here. It was an old-fashioned sprung doorbell, and I had French antiques in the shop and I had French antique curtains. So this was, a little quirky boutique destination shopping place. So people didn't randomly come in my door. They came in because they knew what I did, and they'd come for purpose. So I'd get down in the shop and there'd be nobody, and because I'd done the Reiki, I don't know why, but I wasn't frazzled by it, but my team and the workroom were. And they would go down into the basement to pick up the fabric. They'd wait until I got to the shop, down into the shop, and they go, Sandy, do you think you could just pick up so-and-so's fabric while you were there? And by this time I had 2 little tots of children, and they didn't want to stay on the girls upstairs didn't want to stay on the premises unless I was there, which all got a bit silly. And one day I stood down in the basement, and it was cold. In fact, it was chill cold, which I've now come to understand is a bit of a way shower for what's going on. And I don't know, I stood there and I thought, what is this? Why are they so freaked about coming down here? And I could feel this pressure on my chest. And, I worked with women and for women. It felt male. And that was the start of a whole new adventure. So that was 1997. And I knew I wasn't going to make wedding dresses forever, but I had no idea what was coming down the tubes. The end of my wedding dress time.
Yeah, sounds like Life of Brian, bring out the dead.
That's just the start of it, believe me. Ultimately, I started to be curious about spaces. I mean, I with the help of a woman from the Federation of Spiritual Healers, who randomly I had met a couple of weeks before, we worked together to speak to this man in the basement. And on a day that we were closed, we pulled the big fitting room curtains across this shop. And she said, okay, you know, we're going to create a circle of light. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we'll create the circle. She said, I'm going to talk him up the basement stairs. And I thought, God, I can feel him. I can feel him at the top of the stairs. And then she set a ladder of light up, and she, you know, said, you know, speak to him, talk him into the circle and up the ladder. So I did what I was told, and I felt him move into the circle and move up, and then he paused. And I thought, oh God. So, you know, now what do we do? And she said, no, she's waiting for you. She's waiting for you. And with that, there was a pop, and he went. And what had happened was that he died of emphysema. Okay, so I got this chest piece, and he hadn't wanted to leave his wife. So an aspect of him at the time of passing, and he didn't pass in the house, was so traumatized at the thought of leaving his wife that a fragment of him came back to where they lived, to the seat of the trauma, and anchored itself in. Of course, she then passed away and went on.
Yeah.
Wasn't bothered. Right?
So you know what?
Exactly.
Shopping. Yeah, Jimmy shopping.
And I thought, how curious. I'm a wedding dress shop, right? And what had come up to be revealed was this piece of the story of what was locked in this little shop. And actually, I realized that this shop had changed hands quite a number of times. People didn't stay in this shop very long. So that was really fascinating.
Makes sense.
In itself. Yeah. So that then started me curious about spaces and the energy that gets locked in spaces. And by the time I'd got to that place, which was until 98, I'd also started training in Sekhem, actually with an Australian master called Helen Bellow. And she'd started to come into the UK to teach Sekhem, S-E-K-H-E-M. There's several different versions of Sekhem. And I lit up like a Christmas tree when I saw this advert for this teaching. And I can remember being so excited about going to meet this woman. And of all the students, she'd asked for me to work on her as a demo. And they'd then turned around and said, you know, yes, you and I have worked together before at Luxor, in the temple at Luxor. And I'm like, wow, this is, you know, really amazing. Anyway, I had started getting really curious about why some people, when they go for a healing session, feel the shift from the session. And then when they come back again, we incrementally map a pathway to wellness. And why some people come and they have a healing session and they feel the shift and they go home. And then when they come back again, we start all over again. We're back to ground zero. Why is that? Why, what is it? So that's really what took me out on the curiosity about space and how I ended up some years later, working primarily as a house whisperer. But what happened was I became more and more interested in that part of me than I was in the frock making. And so, energy flows where your attention goes. So my attention in its curiosity about spaces, and I'd always loved interiors. Always done the interiors of my own shop, the rag rolling, the stenciling, the whatevers. And you know, the energy to make wedding dresses became more and more onerous. It became more and more heavy for me to keep showing up and, you know, designing and pattern cutting and dealing with, the counselling sessions that my staff needed once a week because they've got stuff happening at home or whatever. You know, I became less and less, and the stress of getting this dress right for this girl, and the and the stress of one of my staff having a bad day and, you know, wiping the sleeve of the dress on their red lipstick just as it's about to be delivered to the client. Yes, it was that sort of stuff. It wasn't La La Land making wedding frocks and beauty for people. There was a lot of other, you know, dealing with the bride's mother who was having an epi, or the bride who'd come running in and say that she'd had a nightmare about the fact that she was walking down the aisle naked, or that her, you know, her dress was purple and she just wanted to come in and have another look at the dress to make sure it wasn't purple. You know, it was that sort of stuff. So eventually in 2000, I closed my last wedding dress shop, having been in the town for 18 years.
Wow.
And at one point having 2 shops, one in Winchester as well. And we, you know, we did a lot of beautiful work. But it wasn't floating my boat anymore. I wasn't, you know, it didn't want to get up in the morning to do it. And I went off to Chelsea Harbour in London and trained in interiors at KRC in Chelsea Harbour. And then started out this journey of creating sanctuary places for people, sanctuary for the soul. So I started primarily working with bedrooms and en suites. So creating a real sense of sanctuary that was, you know, that our spaces are places where we truly need to come home to ourselves. So yeah, this is the actual little Rosie temple that I have here in Somerset. This is my little meditation space where we do gatherings and teachings. So
that's lovely.
You know, I then from that experience in 97, I was working with different other light technologies that would heal temporary, create beautiful spaces, high frequency spaces that were sanctuary for the soul, so that when you walked in, you know, the house wrapped its arms around you and you felt safe, nourished, inspired and energized to be able to go out and share yourself with the world. But home is that deeper canvas. This is inner temple, and our houses are our outer temple. You know, what is the resonance between this inner temple and what's going on in our spaces, creating, you know, this aligned space for ourselves. So that journey then led me on to meeting with someone called Christian Kyriakou, and I met up with him in 2005, and we came together in partnership to really develop the language, the art and science of house whispering. So we did hundreds and hundreds of consultations together through Europe, through the UK, through Northern Ireland, out through into the States. And we used to teach house whispering when we were teaching in the States as the house whisperers. So
Didn't you go to Damaha there, Kafella? Didn't you go to Damaha?
Sorry?
Didn't you go to Damaha?
No, didn't. That's up in the north of
Italy, yeah.
Italy. I mean, a really sacred community, working a lot with sacred geometry and earth magic, creating a lot of beautiful creative work. But no, we would go to clients who had issues around relationship, finances, or their health. Or they absolutely knew that there was something that was not in alignment with their space, and their space was impacting on their well-being on some level or another. But it was a really rich journey. We traveled very well together in that work and developed a very unique language for how the spaces impact on our well-being. And over those years, I developed a real mastery of working with earthbound spirits, being able to communicate with earthbound spirits, be able to tune my radio dial down to be able to hear a story that a fragment of a soul has lodged in the heart that's got them stuck on the earth plane. And, mastered tools and techniques to be able to release that. So it's like soul retrieval in reverse, really. But you're right.
Yeah. So could you explain, because obviously a lot of listeners may think house whispering, well, does the house whisper to the person?
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
So I mean, yeah, it does, because the house holds stories. We've all been in places where we've walked in and we've gone, get me out of here. Yeah. I don't want to, and we've been in places where we've come out and felt absolutely drained. And we've been in places where we felt, this is familiar. I can remember going to Venice on one of my trips to get fabric for the wedding dresses, and going into La Pieta, the church that Vivaldi had with the girls, and creating the music for the girls in this orphanage, and he'd have them playing up in balconies so that he could get surround sound and things like that. But I can remember going in there and my palms absolutely pulsing. And that absolutely is one of my way showers that tells me, stop, pay attention, listen. There is something here that is familiar, a frequency that is familiar, that is known to me, to pick up the information. So we've all been in places, that deja vu, or it's at a subtle level. We might not have the language for it, but and we know when we feel uncomfortable in a space. Well, that can be for a variety of reasons. But one of the primary things I look for when although I'm not with Christian now with my work, the work has developed on in a different way. We did sort of 10 years together of this development, and then we took our journeys in separate directions. But for me, one of the keynotes in that journey was in 2010, when I started the communication with the roses. And I'd gone off to the Alhambra in Granada in Spain at the end of April, which is rose time in Andalusia. And I'd come back with a load of photographs. No idea, that there was anything magical that was going on here. All I knew is that when I walked into the Alhambra, I felt like I'd come home. And Moorish architecture has always been something I found really beautiful. The form and of spaces in Moorish architecture, and so that's one of the reasons that I'd been fascinated to go. I didn't realize there was a whole new piece that was going to come forward from that. And I'd gone with my favorite camera, loved photography, and had been drawn off into the rose gardens before I'd even got into the Nasrid Palace, and photographed loads of roses. And the roses were in like beautiful rooms, outside rooms with waterways and archways and big rose beds. And so I came back with all of these photographs, loaded them on my computer. And a couple of days later, there was a voice in my head that said, we'd like you to put 11 of us together and work with us. We've come to heal the Magdalene wound. We've come to heal the wounded aspects of the feminine in both men and women, but that it's always been the women that have sought the healing first for their children, their families, and their communities. So the the pathways for me in the process started to merge. My own journey with the roses and the way that I showed up, even in the latter years with Christian, was always to bring the roses with me and to work with their technology, their geometry, to be part of that process of upshifting the frequency of space.
Mm.
And that really is where I am
Wow.
now. I work the two aspects of this mastery of the way that I work with people and their spaces to create high frequency, clear, high frequency spaces. And my earth service within that is in the spirit release. It's in releasing stuck spirit, because Mother Earth doesn't want this traumatized energy on her mantle anymore.
No.
You know, this has to be released. And my work with the roses in a pathway of coming home to ourselves. So it's either coming home to our own heart space or coming home to the heart of home, and then being able to merge the two so that we are effortlessly at home in ourselves. And our energy fields, when we are in a healthy, clear and aligned space, can unpack, which allows us to absorb the vitality of the earth and to be surrounded by, you know, the beauty. Oh, thank you, Jeffrey. That the Alhambra is just a most magical Moorish palace, just on the outsides of Granada, and the architecture and the sense of the space and the connection to the Sierra Nevadas is just magical. Yeah, I think if you go on, that is an amazing view through one of the Moorish arches, and this is the Lion Court, actually, that you were just the one above. That's it, the Court of the Lions, and there are 12 lions facing out from the center waterway, and channels going out to these amazing architectural. Like pergolas, really, aren't they? I mean, just beautiful. It's you know, I really recommend anybody. They don't have to be interested in roses or Moorish architecture, but the energy is amazing there. And it's actually on one of the esoteric Venus temples. There are 7 places on the planet that are holding this template, a Venusian template, and the Alhambra is on one of them. And you see these beautiful waterways. And obviously that has a very strong connection to feng shui, and the way that these sort of rooms, you know, you walked from space to space, and the rooms were filled with beauty, and the gardens were just magical to be in. I you know, as I say, there was a real sense of sacred homecoming for me. It's like it was familiar, but for whatever reason, I had gone there to collect the roses. I had gone there to make this connection with the beautiful rose gardens there. And as I say, anybody that's interested in going there for the rose gardens, you'd need to go there end of April, beginning of May. They're about a month ahead of the season here in the UK. But it really is magical place. So yeah, that's the way that the weave has taken me. And I think you've got the Venus grid there, Jeff, that I
was going to ask about that. Like the bricks hold the memories, don't they, in the buildings?
They absolutely do. I mean, because actually anything that we have that we are building materials holds some degree of water. So, you know, if we look at the work of Masaru Emoto, who spoke about the memory held in water. So even, you know, the plaster on our walls has got a percentage of water in it, otherwise it would be dust. So it is the water molecules that hold the memory. We can walk into a room and we know whether it's got good vibes or whether it's not. And there are two main energies that hang around in spaces. One is spirit energy, which is a fragment of a soul that's had a life just like you and I. And for whatever reason, there was trauma in the heart field, like my chap in the wedding dress shop, that has meant that it is more difficult for the soul to leave the body. So people will often wait till a certain person comes into the room before they feel that they can leave. Or for some people, they will wait until people leave the room before that they can leave, because there's too much of an emotional connection. Some people go into a coma that for 2 or 3 days it will be an inner process of coming to peace with the life, to enable a really easy transit out of the body. And this is why in the Egyptian pantheon, Anubis weighed the heart against a feather at the time of passing. So we are called to have hearts as light as feathers. And this is our journey through life, to find peace with perhaps the traumas of our childhood. I mean, I've been very interested in the work of Dr. Gabor Mate. He's much more visible these days because he's just written another book called The Myth of Normal. But he is a Vancouver-based physician who specializes in trauma and addiction. And his work is just amazing. I was very blessed to have an invitation for his pathway of teaching called Compassionate Inquiry. And I had to pull back out because I just didn't have enough hours in running my own business and my own mentoring and counseling work to have done the course with him. But his work is just amazing. So we are given all of these indicators now. Our bodies are 72% water. What our self-talk impacts on the health of ourselves or not. Yeah. And this for me is where the roses come in too, because in their path of they're just pure love. The roses are just pure love. These they're the original roses that came to me from the Alhambra, that whispered message from the Alhambra, we'd like you to bring 11 of us together and work with us, was, and this is the book that goes with the oracle deck. There is
you mentioned that your cards are more healing cards than giving out readings, didn't you?
Yeah.
And I know, like, you've obviously moved from 11 cards, and I think you said about you had 44, 45, and you've even gone up to 52 now, is it?
52 now. So from 2010, when I first had that whispered message from the roses, and they called themselves the Way of the Rose at that point, and they set those 11 roses set up on as a healing grid on the body, so that those 11 rose energies, because I sat and meditated with them, and each one told me where they worked on the body and what they did. Like for instance, this rose is rose 5, and she sits on the throat chakra, and she helps us to release and clear anywhere in which we block our ability to share and to speak, and where we swallow down rather than speak. Any issues of the throat, any issues with the thyroid, any issues around our speech will come from, be assisted in this work with this rose, very refined and defined.
It's a beautiful picture.
Yeah, she's,
So
but they
obviously all of your cards are all your own pictures?
Yeah, they're all my own photographs. And I've sat and I've meditated with each one of them, and they've told me where in the body they work and how they work together. And it's a healing oracle. It was never meant as divination, but
No.
I've ended up, by default doing new and full moon rose readings because it helps people understand the technology. These are light technology. They are just pure love. And they are here to illuminate. This is another one of the roses from the Alhambra. And she says, I am inner strength. And she was sitting in a rose bed just outside at the back of the main Nasrid Palace. And she was in the shadows. And she said to me, although I sit in the shadows, still I am beautiful. And I just wait until it's my time to shine. And you can see the sunshine all the way around her. And it was like, oh, no, I can sit here and I can just radiate. And as sure as eggs is eggs, the sun is going to come round in the sky and it will illuminate me a little later this afternoon. And that will be my time to shine. And we can take that on lots of different levels. Some of us have had to sit quietly at different points in our lives and wait until it is our time to step forward. This rose sits on the solar plexus.
That's beautiful.
And there's nothing fluffy about this rose. She's super clear. She's like the Sekhmet of roses. She says, don't mess with me. I have clear boundaries. I know who I am. But her partner, there's two roses that sit on the solar plexus, is this one. And she says, although I look like I'm vulnerable and I'm fragile, in my vulnerability is my superpower. When I acknowledge my vulnerability, nobody can go and blow me over because I know where my strengths and my weaknesses are. So, they have really, and you can put a glass of water on the rose card and make energetically charged water. It's through a process scientifically called epitaxy, where the frequency of one thing translates into the energy of another. So that they were never designed. Yeah, that's the completed set. That was the second edition set that came forward just as we went into 2020. In fact, the full shipment arrived on my birthday in February in 2020, and then of course we went into lockdown. So they were an amazing. I did a whole series of classes through lockdown to help people find their inner strength and their pathway. The roses have no other agenda other than to bring us home to ourselves, to bring us home to love. And I at one point I was in from I suppose 2011 to 2015, I was teaching the classes here in the UK and in the States. Did a lot of teaching in New York at the Theosophical Society and the Open Center in Manhattan, Meta Center, Namaste Bookstore.
If you go back up, Jeff, at the top, and the very top one, I think it was. Yeah, that one there. It looks like a face, doesn't it? It's like the nose, the eye, the mouth. I see.
Yeah.
I can't see what number it is, but it looks. Yeah. As soon as I saw it, I thought, "Oh wow, there's a face if ever I saw one." But I mean, I see face. I see faces everywhere. Yeah, of course, it's on the side. Look. So what one is that then?
Is this the one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But that one's turn it the other way around. Long way. It looks. Oh my God, both ways. There's a face. I can see a face both ways.
You turn around the other way.
Yeah.
You got that face. Yeah, and then you go there. There's a line. or
Yeah.
an animal. Yeah.
Wow. Because I look at them this way. I haven't seen that.
Yeah, no, that the other way really called me. It's just like he's looking
Same
down
here.
a bent nose. And so what number, what name, what's the message on that card then?
This is Rose Bagua 6. So there are 7 levels to this work that I share with the Rose Oracle. The first set is working with the physical body. So it's a grid on the body. The second set are 3 master roses that weave the left and right hemispheres of the brain. Then there are 11 roses that are the transformers of the 5 wounds to love, of abandonment, betrayal, denial, judgment, and separation. This rose belongs to the Rose Bagua. I'll show you. This is the Rose Bagua.
Oh, wow.
Right. So this is what I often use when I'm working with clients with their spaces, because it rebalances the Bagua, the feng shui Bagua of the space. So this rose is all about helpful friends. And she looks almost etheric. You know, she doesn't look like, but she's another one of the Alhambra roses, actually. Not all of them are. But, she is on this Bagua, on this axis, across this diagonal. This is the rose of abundance, wealth, and blessings. So what this rose down here is saying is that we have to recognize the value of the helpful friends in our lives and how much that impacts on our sense of wealth, blessings, and abundance in life. So, if we're wanting to be working in this arena, we have to foster the connections and the relationships that get us, that really understand us, that, I suppose what we call our tribe, those that really see and support what we're doing. So this is the message of this rose. And it's interesting, isn't it? So
very.
The faces.
Yeah, either way, you've got 2 different faces, haven't you?
Yeah. There is another rose. I'll tell you a little story about when I was teaching at just trying to find it. I was teaching at the Theosophical Society in New York, and the New Yorkers come in, fully armored up. If they've come in on the subway, it's like they've got metal jackets on. And there was quite a big group, actually. And one woman came in quite late, and she sat at the back, and she had quite a big woman, and she had a strapped bag across her shoulder, and which she didn't take off. And so she didn't sort of really settle. And it was quite sort of disruptive in the back of the class. And I'd started going through the first class until we got to this rose, right? Now, this is Rose 8, this rose. And she got up, and this woman became super animated, because actually what she could see was this sort of Mary figure, this cloaked figure, sitting right in the gateway to the sort of inner sanctum of the heart. Once she got that, she became super animated and was almost bouncing around the room. But, people see different things in the roses. That's what I'm saying. And actually what you see is really what has got the message for you. So this was like the temple guardian, the inner temple guardian, the guardian to the Holy of Holies. And so we've got this sort of figure that is like Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene, sitting guarding the entrance to the inner temple.
Yeah, and on that one I can see, like at the top, look like 2 figures. So where was I looking? Yeah, so those 2. Well, I can't point here because so right in the middle you've got 2 pointy bits, and they look like 2 heads to me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
interesting, isn't it?
Amazing. Yeah.
This is why, for me, working live groups, working live circles is so fascinating, because just because I was, I'm a voice for these roses, and what has come through intuitively for me. Part of this, I mean, when I first heard that voice that said, we'd like you to put 11 of us together and work with us, I did say, who am I hearing?
Yeah.
Who am I listening to? Who is
Yeah.
this? And what they said was, we are the Sisterhood of the Rose. And there are both brothers and sisters of the Rose, because there were Knights of the Rose, Rose Knights in medieval France. This connection to the heart, this connection to love. So, and they said, that the voice that I would be hearing through that story was that the voice that I would be hearing and that would be guiding this work would be an energy called Lady Nada. And Lady Nada is an ascended master, and she works alongside what are known as the White Light Brotherhood. And she said many of the White Light Brotherhood were also Brothers of the Rose. So once I'd understood that I was getting high frequency guidance for this whole process, that's how it unfolded. So it took me 4 years to get the first the first segment published, the first edition, and then there was more to come. And so what I then, as I've sold out of the first edition, I added those into a second edition. And so we published again the set with the additional 7 cards in 2019. But this working with mandala, I've got many people that work with the Rose Oracle that do group work.
Yeah.
And they use the roses, sometimes with color mirrors, sometimes with crystals, to set up an energetic framework in the center of a circle. I also work with alchemy crystal bowls, with sound bowls, and I work with the sound to allow for groups to go deeper in a journey, so that people would select a rose that they're drawn to and then meditate with it, and I'd use the sound as a carrier wave to take it deeper.
I mean, you say like when you're drawn to, I mean, normally I'm quite good, like I pick a card or a card chooses me, but I mean, all those pictures are absolutely stunning, aren't they? They're really beautiful. I mean, it's hard to say, wow, they're all beautiful in their own right.
Yeah. And there's two ways in which you can do that. If you've got the deck, you can just shuffle and just ask for the wisdom of the roses, because they have their own consciousness, they have their own wisdom to show you, what is calling at this time. And the other way I've worked with them when I've been doing the big exhibitions in London, Mind, Body, Spirit, Mind, Body, Soul, is to put them out in a spiral, like the photographs you've seen, and allow people to just scan either with their hands or with their eyes. And it's unbelievable. People will pick up a rose and just put it to their heart and burst into tears. That it's like the consciousness.
Fabulous. That is one of your scarves behind you that you've designed?
Yes, it is. This is the Gaia Gateway scarf. Just turn you very slightly. She's a big. They're 130 by 130. They're big. Big scarves.
Have you done one for each rose, or have you just done a few?
I've only done the roses that I've only had the roses printed that the roses have told me they want to be printed.
Right. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, how many is that so far that have been printed then?
I think I've got about 15.
Right.
But I've got I also print them onto mats, like little meditation mats that you can sit on, or you can lay on the body, you know, if you've got pain or discomfort. Because if we go back to that goal, if we go back to the Venus mandala, that Venus mandala is basically the energy of the roses. The rose opens her bud when she has 5 sepals, right? That the 5 sepals, they open not consecutively, they open in the same way that you would draw a 5-pointed star. And then the blossom explodes from that in a golden mean ratio. So the magic of the rose is the fact that embedded within the coding of it is the golden mean. And the golden mean is a ratio of 1 to 1.61803. It is known as the beauty ratio. It was used by Leonardo in his paintings, used by many artists. But it's also the frequency of the heart in love. The work of Dan Winter in the south of, amazing physicist in the south of France. You know, that I've done study work with Dan, and the frequency of the heart in love is 1 to 1.61803. And in that Venus mandala, that journey of Venus in the heavens is 8 years, and she comes in to create that Rosabella every 1.618 years.
Wow.
So Venus, as above, so below. Venus, the heart, and love are all interconnected from this sacred geometry. And it's also the growth proportion of our bodies. You know, there's the 1, there's the 1.61803. You know, everything is a ratio of and how we move. And so when the work with the roses is to bring us home to ourselves. It's to bring us home to love. When we can stay in the frequency of love 24/7, we cannot get sick. Every beat of our heart pulses that frequency through the body, 360 degrees. When we can make shift within ourselves, this is when the magic happens. This is when the most incredible healing takes place, when we are able to access different states of our sense of ourselves. You know, and I guess that, you know, the way that the journey's taken me on from the roses, and Jeffrey's just put up this piece of artwork. This is by a lady called Nachaya Campbell Allen, and it's called Meeting the Dragon. It's Kuan Yin and the dragon. This place of compassion, this place of finding the empowerment within us. I mean, I've recently, in the last 10 months, moved from my home base in Hampshire to Somerset.
We're about in Somerset. We're in Somerset.
I'm just off of the main Avalon circuit. I'm just down near Ilminster. So the pathway of coming here is random. It's like, really, guys, why am I going? But it's a door that stayed open for me. You know, the door of this cottage stayed open, and it was here for me to come to connect with the energy of somewhere called Burrow Mump. And I think you've got some pictures, Jeff, of Burrow Mump. Burrow Mump is a sacred site in the Avalon land. And I was drawn to go there, visit pretty soon after I got here. It was clearly the reason for me coming to be on this piece of land. And when I went to Burrow Mump, and I've been fascinated by the work of Rory Duff, and had several conversations about Rory Duff, and actually that brings us back full circle to our meeting at Knowlton. Andrena, because Rory Duff is a geobiologist or biogeologist, one of the two, and he is really interested in the energy lines of the earth and how at times of the equinox and solstices, the lines in the earth come into harmony. They come into harmony times. And what he's saying is that what his vision is that as the energies of these sacred sites come into harmony, the nodes open like roses. So there is a big weave of the work that Rory's doing, and my curiosity about the chakras, the rose grids on the body, and the connection with the energy of the land and the roses and the heart of home. So the journey that took me to Somerset and then took me to Borough Mump brought me into connection with a group of energies called the Elemental Rose Dragons. And this has been the fascination for this last 9-10 months that I've been here. These elemental energies that are coming, they said they'd come from the 5D heart of Gaia, that they had come specifically as rose dragons in the frequency alignment of my own journey with the roses, but they were holding the template of earth, air, fire, and water, and ether. So from standing in full presence and listening to the note of Borough Mump and sounding the note of Borough Mump, what opened up was this connection and the communication with these four elemental rose energies, elemental rose dragons. Now, if you said to me a year ago that I would be talking dragon speak, I would have fallen off my chair. This is absolutely not in my language. I have worked with the energy, obviously, of the land when I'm working with people with spaces, because sometimes there is a vortex or a portal or an imbalance in the land which is affecting the balance of energy in the home. But never in this way did I imagine that I would be listening and communicating with the consciousness of Borough Mump, let alone these dragons. And
where's Borough Mump? I mean,
Borough Mump. Yeah.
So, it's just on the edge.
Yeah.
It's just
yeah. You will need to go.
Open up a bit more.
Wells.
Yeah. You're going to have to come down to near North Curry. Keep going past Langport. You'll need to keep going left. You could take your cursor left from Langport, and it's sort of between. No, not that far down. Between Langport and Taunton. Between Langport and Taunton, you'll need to come back to the right. Keep going right. So you're in there somewhere, just near North Curry. Not far from North Curry. Oh, did you see? Was that? Yeah, you probably need to keep going in, but it's just north of North Curry.
I remember going there with Carol, oh God, many years ago, and I remember it had been raining, and I came down the hill much faster than I'd gone up.
Yeah, it is. It is what it is pretty. It is a scramble up and a scramble back down again. But
because that's not so popular as going up the Tor, is it, for people?
No, but actually Borough Mump in some ways is a clearer frequency. It's also on the Michael Mary line, but it's not had so much work done on it.
Yeah,
and I think that's this is the challenge for the tour, is the fact that people go to do work, and so it gets slightly corrupted in its frequency. Some days it's a bit more gunky than others. It has to work hard, whereas Borough Mump has not. You can see the tour from the Mump, and the Mump has got a connection to King Alfred.
Right.
So King Alfred had his one of his out of town gathering places at the Mump, and the Mump has also got a direct energetic connection to Rosslyn Chapel. And curiously, the mump is on exactly within minutes on longitude between Rosslyn Chapel and the Alhambra. So it gets curiouser and curiouser, the journey.
Yeah.
But
It's
what these elemental rose dragons are saying is that we have to have. There it is. You've got it, Jeff, in the little picture up on the top. So what they're saying is that we have to connect in with these elemental energies of Mother Earth. We have to understand that our body is her body, that we are made up of earth, air, fire, and water. And this is the vessel that we are journeying in, but we are animated by spirit. And that is a vessel, on this vessel for the soul. So what they're inviting us to is a different level of homecoming to ourselves, a different level of connection with those elements within us that bring us into a deeper and deeper harmony with the earth. And they said that at this time, the more of us that are aligned with the earth in that way, the more we are able to hold the light quotient, and that Gaia has not been able to fully activate in her 5D form until there was enough of us in vertical alignment, holding a high enough frequency of field so that we didn't get fried. As you know, with these high frequency photonic light energies coming onto the planet, with these EMFs and CMEs from the sun, we are being asked to upgrade, we're being asked to purify, we're being asked to really connect in with these elements. And so the rose dragons and the work that I've been developing with the rose dragons is this call of sacred homecoming. So it's interesting, isn't it, that I work with spaces to enable people to sacred homecoming to their spaces, but this work is a deepening aspect of weaving masculine feminine, and that links me right back to the wedding dresses. It's like this sacredness of marriage, but actually it's an internal process that we're called to mastery of, weaving the Eden Pingala, weaving the masculine feminine in balance, and connecting in with the earth and the currents of the earth, the sacredness of the earth, to enable our hearts to be fully open. And it's said, isn't it, when the aircraft, if there is an issue with the oxygen, put your mask on first. We have to do, those of us that are drawn to this work, have to do the work to refine and align so that we can be safe hands.
Definitely. There was one thing I was going to ask you, because I saw you put about the Vedic numbers, and you had 9 and a star next to it. So I just wondered, because obviously I'm a life path 9 and I've got all 9s in my chart. But how does that vary? Is that a completely different way as opposed to the average life path numbers?
I don't. Yeah, I don't. They don't. The two are not. Yeah. They're not connected. There's not. What do you mean? The 9 in the rose cards?
No, in the Vedic numerology, I've sort of read something about what did it say now? I don't know. You had a 9 and then a star, and then it said Vedic something or other. I've forgotten what it said now. So I just wondered if that was anything to with, because I know you mentioned numerology. No, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't know anything about Vedic numerology.
Oh well, I saw Vedic. It said anyway. We'll have a look at that.
Good. So, I did study with Camilla Sutton in Vedic astrology years and years ago. As it was part of my really sort of looking at where my focus wanted to be. What was it that really drew me as I like technology, because Yotish, that Vedic astrology is the science of light. So this was part of my exploration. I also did a year's study with the Academy of Healing Nutrition. All of these ways of well-being. How do we best optimize our health and well-being?
Definitely. Oh, it's been absolutely fascinating. I'm so glad I bumped into you again. It was obviously so meant to be, because absolutely fascinating. I mean, I've seen pictures of, along the track of your cards and your scarves and different messages. But so it's all divine timing. So thank you for being star of the show this week. And I really enjoyed it. So, and Sharon, so look forward to catching up with you soon.
Yeah, thanks, Andrena. Yeah, it's certainly been what one would call a colourful journey on lots of levels.
Definitely.
I do have a question, but are you going down towards that path of essential rose oil?
I do. I used essential rose oil before I came onto the program. So I use an Egyptian rose oil, which I energetically charge on the rose oracle, on the rose cards, or the rose cards that want to come to energetically charge it. But I use Egyptian rose oil because it's a very green, very light green. It's not a heavy cloying oil, which some of them are. But interestingly, as we've got a coronation coming up, rose oil is used in the anointing process. Amongst other things, rose oil is used to anoint the third eye of the new.
Yeah, no, I love the rose oil, and I have got one, I think, from Star Child. I got a long time ago, but yeah, I always go in and put the best drops on when I pass it through.
Yeah, and it's the highest frequency of the oils at 326 megahertz, microhertz or something. But it's the highest frequency of the oil, and actually, it's an oil that I've used when I've been present at the passing of family members, to use the rose oil on the heart as an anointing.
Beautiful.
Do you use pure rose oil, or you got a carrier?
No, pure.
What about the Indian rose oil?
Actually, when I did a talk in a workshop at Botanica, one of the essential oil conferences, and I got talking to somebody who works in Pakistan and has got rose gardens in the Indus Valley, and their oil is beautiful too. But Bulgarian, Turkish oil, Moroccan oils, they've all got a slightly different energy to them. And, there are those that grow the oil, the roses in the south of France. They too have got a different frequency.
And do you go and communicate with the diva?
No, I go and communicate with the person that's selling the rose oil. No, but if I'm in the garden here, Jeff, absolutely. And it's always very interesting when people speak about the roses, because and they ask me what rose is it? What's the name of that rose? It's never been about the bush or the name of the rose. Some of the roses I can tell you what their name is, whether they're a David Austin rose or whether I've had the name. But usually it is one bloom on the bush that has called me. And there is a funny little story, and I'll see if I can just quickly find the rose. The rose that is the Earth Star rose, this one.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So this rose came from Sedona.
Oh, yeah, my favorite place.
And so I went and did a talk in Sedona. I'd done a workshop in Phoenix, and I'd met up then with some friends from New Jersey who'd flown down, and we took a car up into Sedona for several days. And on the last day, we went to this gallery type mile type place in the center of Sedona. And I left my big camera, which everything else has been taken on a big SLR camera. I left my camera in the car, and I just had an iPad with me, I think. And I didn't know there were any more roses coming. I'd finished the first set. I had no view that there were any more roses. And we got into this this sort of creative arts type mall, and there was a big, big rose garden in the middle with lots of statues of the divine feminine in all her forms, and a white calf buffalo woman, and all sorts. And in the middle of this rose bed, there was a rose going, photograph me, don't go without photographing me. And I head stuffed it. I didn't go back to the car and get my big camera. I just got out my iPad and I tiptoed across this rose bed, hoping that nobody was going to stop me in the middle of this mall. This crazy woman creeping over to photograph this rose. And so this is the only rose in the complete oracle that wasn't done on a proper camera. But, she had to be photographed. And I had no idea there were any more roses coming. I never have done from that first 11. And I always got downloads in the shower. I'd be standing in the shower and there's 3 more of us that want to come through. And we are the Master Roses. And we'd like you to go to Rosslyn Chapel, or there's 11 more of us that want to come together. And we're the Rose Angels. No, I don't want a whole load of roses called Rose, Archangel Michael Rose and Archangel. No, there was this dialogue that would be going on in the shower. And it was the same with the Bagua. There's 9 of us that want to come together, and we're a Bagua. Can I call you life codes, light codes? Can I call you anything but a Bagua? No, we're a Bagua.
Fair enough.
I followed. And this lot, these came forward as the cosmic roses. There's the Gaia Gateway, which is the big rose scarf that's up behind me.
Beautiful.
And that's the Earth Star. They sit like cup and saucer. And have I got the other 2? That's the Stellar Gateway. Totally sort of mystical, magical portal. And and this one is the Soul Star. Just an explosion of golden light.
But they're all stunning. Every one that you've picked up are absolutely stunning.
Yeah, they are. This one
is. With the essential oils, do you ever put them on your tummy button?
Well, on the Pechotti gland. Yeah.
Tummy. What do you call it?
The Pechotti gland.
Is that what you call it?
Yeah. So if you put the rose oil on your navel, obviously from the umbilical cord connection to the center, that nosode will take the energy right around the body. You have to be quite careful what you use and what you put on there, and obviously some oils need a carrier, but it is absolutely, and it follows the same pathways that the fetus in utero would have been nourished through the placenta of the mother. So it's still active if we use the Pechotti gland. Yeah.
So you can use that, and you could do them on the crown. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Any other place? Left and right temple?
Yeah, you could do. You could do. It depends where your focus is. My training, energy training that I use as my energy anatomy is pranic healing, and I trained directly with Master Choa. I did retreats with Master Choa in the early 2000s. So the crown has got a funnel, energetic funnel that comes down into the pineal gland. And the pineal gland has also got a funnel to the forehead chakra, which is the unicorn energy. But there's also these 2 come together with the pineal and the pituitary gland. So yes, we can choose what we want to activate or work with. But certainly I work with the rose oil on the heart, on the sacral chakra, the navel, and with the crown. And what is interesting is that Rose 11 in this set, if she's going to let me see her, this one, this rose is from the first set, but she sits on the heart, and then she moves to the crown, and with the view that the crown can only open to the degree that the heart is. And this is why our inner work with healing the stories that we might hold in the heart, and to work with our shadow aspects, these hidden aspects of self that shut our energy down. When we work with those diligently to open that energy up, so the crown opens in relation to the openness of the heart, because that energy has to have somewhere that is going to be held.
So when people do reflexology and they're working on those acupuncture points or acupressure points on your sole of your feet, can you use one particular oil there, or can you use a plethora of different oils, or a mixture of oils when you're working with feet, the soles of your feet?
I think it really is, that's down to a practitioner's mastery. I'm not a master of oils. You need a miracle who is going to be able to give you the guidance. I would, because of the sensitivity of the feet and the direct connection to the organs, I would say you've got to be extremely careful what oil you use, but that's not my mastery. I've had reflexology, I've had good reflexology, and I've had really not good reflexology, as we do along the journey. But these are all beautiful technologies of light that help us along the journey. And it's just it's trusting what we resonate with, what we're drawn to.
So the story of the three kings bring in frankincense, myrrh, and gold. Is that right?
Yeah.
Where are those three placed on the body then?
That would be someone else's mastery, not mine. For me, the work is all about activating the higher heart, which is the threefold flame. It's the weave of love, wisdom, and power, and that sense of universal love. The three kings were all carried individual messages. The messages were in the symbology of the frankincense, the gold, and the myrrh. They were all gifts, energetic gifts. They all hold a different frequency coding that became part of the activation. And it's also, with any of this stuff, it's coded. It's for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. Right? That the inner mysteries, you take it. What level of this storyline do you want to take? So, yeah.
The power of the word. Oh, lovely. Well, thank you for staying back for that extra little bit.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, it's really, really fascinating. So thank you once again, and amazing.
Welcome.
I'll stay with us while we end the broadcast, so stay in the green room. There you go. Thank you, folks. Yep.
Same time